In our headlines on this Tuesday afternoon, May 30th, here in South Korea. President Yoon Suk-yeol is playing host to the country's first summit with Pacific Island leaders to address regional economic development and climate change, as well as to rally support for Busan's bid to host the 2030 World Expo. And North Korea is preparing to launch its first spy satellite in June, even as the international community denounces the move as violating a number of United Nations Security Council resolutions. Meanwhile, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan wins Turkey's election in a historic runoff vote this past Sunday, garnering over 52% of the ballots to extend his rule into a third decade. We start with some disturbing news here on the Korean Peninsula. Pyongyang is poised to launch its first reconnaissance satellite within early June, despite the denunciation of the international community. Our Lee Soo-jin starts us off.
Tensions are once again ramping up on the Korean Peninsula. High-ranking North Korean military official Lee Byung-chul announced in a statement released by the country's state media KCNA on Tuesday that the country is planning to launch a military spy satellite as soon as June. This marks the first time that North Korea has revealed a timeline for the satellite launch. This comes just a day after the Japanese media reported that North Korea had notified Japan of its plan to launch the satellite sometime between May 31st and June 11th. Japan's Coast Guard, which coordinates maritime safety in East Asia, promptly issued a safety warning for ships. In the statement, Ri, the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission of the ruling Workers' Party, also condemned joint military exercises by South Korea and the United States. He added that the military reconnaissance satellite would be launched to track, monitor, and determine in real time the military actions of the United States and its allies. South Korea and the U.S. conducted the largest live-fire exercise of its kind near North Korea's border last week, which is scheduled to continue until mid-June. The news of the imminent spy satellite launch drew contrasting responses from the U.S. and China. The U.S. State Department denounced North Korea's threats, warning that it will be held accountable if it actually launches the satellite. A launch by North Korea that uses long-range ballistic missile technology is a violation of the UN Security Council's resolutions. Meanwhile, North Korea's biggest ally, China, reiterated its previous stance on the importance of carrying out meaningful and balanced conversations. Its foreign ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said in a press briefing on Monday that China hopes that all the nations involved will understand the crux of the issue with North Korea, strive to reach a political settlement, and address the concerns of all the parties involved in a balanced manner. Ning, however, did not respond to whether the satellite launch is a violation of the UN Security Council's resolutions. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Here in South Korea, the country is playing host to leaders of the Pacific Islands Forum who are in Busan on this Tuesday to explore the southern port city's efforts to host the 2030 World Expo. Now, back on Monday, a summit between President Yoon Suk-yeol and members of the forum saw climate change and economic expansion topping talks. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
Taking a step further as a global pivotal state, South Korea hosted members of the Pacific Islands Forum and pledged to expand cooperation with them in climate change, security, and official development assistance. This was the first summit between the two sides and was also President Yoon Suk-yeol's debut as the host of a multilateral summit. Attending were 12 heads of state, including leaders from the Cook Islands and Palau, while other nations such as Australia and New Zealand were represented by their top ministers. Calling them close neighbors, the president wished to point out that both South Korea and the Pacific Islands are facing similar issues.
저는 여기 계신 정상들과 힘을 합쳐 PIF와 대한민국이 함께하는 상생의 파트너십을 추구하고자 합니다. 태도국의 생존과 번영에 직결된 기후변화, 자연재해, 식량, 보건, 해양수산 위기는 연대와 협력을 통해서만 극복할 수 있습니다.
According to the joint statement and action plan that was announced following the summit under the theme of navigating towards co-prosperity, strengthening cooperation with the Blue Pacific, the two sides will build on their diplomatic ties based on freedom, peace, and prosperity. Tackling climate change as the region sees the direct effects of rising sea levels as well as devastating hurricanes was a priority, along with the sustainable use of marine resources. In addition, Seoul will double the budget for official development assistance provided to PIF members. According to the Korea International Cooperation Agency, as of August last year, South Korea spent nearly $200 million in the last 30 years on ODA in the region. They also address issues in security, saying solidarity is key and jointly condemned North Korea's recent provocations.
Honorable leaders, as the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war has shown us, regional and interregional cooperation is essential if we are to build a safe, secure, and prosperous world.
And now the South Korean government will be switching focus to convincing the visitors to support Busan in the city's quest to host the World Expo in 2030, with 11 votes from Pacific Islands Forum members available. In fact, the visiting leaders will head down to Busan on Tuesday to tour potential expo sites. According to the top office, during the bilateral summits, some countries have already shown support for the bid, including the Marshall Islands and Papua New Guinea. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, on the sidelines of the broader summit, President Yoon held separate talks with his counterparts from 10 Pacific Island nations to address bilateral interests and intentions to promote sustainable regional growth. Our senior top office correspondent Oh Soo-young has more.
President Yoon Suk-yeol held bilateral talks with leaders of 10 Pacific Island nations, deepening South Korea's engagement with its neighbours in the Indo-Pacific. On Monday, he sat down with the leader of the Cook Islands, which is currently chairing the Pacific Islands Forum, and the Prime Ministers of the Marshall Islands, Solomon Islands, Niue and Palau. They discussed South Korea's official development assistance projects in their countries, including water management, renewable energy and resource development, and expressed their intent to advance future exchanges and collaboration. In particular, Yoon's summit with the leader of Niue also coincided with the two countries forging official diplomatic ties on the same morning. Reviewing Seoul's bilateral relations with each of his Pacific counterparts, the South Korean leader has put a special focus on climate response, maritime cooperation, public health and development, as extreme climate events threaten the health of Pacific Islanders, as well as the region's economic and social development. On Sunday, he met with Kiribati's President Tanati Mamao, who expressed interest in South Korea's economic development model and working on advancing the fishing industry and health. Sio Sisovaleni, Prime Minister of Tonga, said he hopes to work with Seoul in the digital sector. Tonga was the first Pacific Island nation to forge diplomatic ties with South Korea in 1970. Meanwhile, Kausea Netano, the leader of Tuvalu, highlighted cooperation on telecommunication facilities, hydrogen exports and decarbonisation in shipping. And the leader of Vanuatu also requested support in future development projects. James Marape, Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, said he hopes for investment by South Korean manufacturers and for Seoul to reopen its foreign aid agency in his country.
Going forward, President Yoon pledged to develop just and trust-based relations with the Pacific Island countries, all of which now have bilateral ties with South Korea. The leaders welcomed Seoul's growing interest in development assistance to their countries. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
In other news, after being stranded in Guam for a week due to Typhoon Mawar, Korean tourists have started arriving home. Guam International Airport resumed operations on Monday, and more than 500 Korean tourists landed at Incheon International Airport late Monday night. According to government authorities here, 11 flights headed to Guam on Monday to bring Koreans back home. Authorities believe more than 2,500 out of the total 3,400 Korean tourists in Guam will have returned home safely by this coming Wednesday. And first quarter earnings show a significant travel deficit for Korea. According to the Bank of Korea on this Tuesday, the country's travel deficit amounted to $3.2 billion during the first quarter of this year. Now, this is the largest first quarter deficit in 5 years and the largest quarterly deficit in more than 3 years since the third quarter of 2019. The growing travel deficit has been largely linked to the slow return of travelers from neighboring China. While the number of inbound tourists from overseas rose over 500% on year during the first quarter, the number of outbound tourists from Korea soared 1,100% during the same period, resulting in a tangible deficit for the country. Also in local news, 2 out of 3 low-income households spent more than they earned in the first quarter of this year. According to Statistics Korea on this Tuesday, over 62% of households in the lowest income bracket were exceeding their disposable income in spending. This is a jump of over 5 percentage points on year and the highest for the first quarter since the outbreak of COVID-19. Agency officials are linking the finding to high utility bills, including those for electricity and gas, which surged by over 15%, as well as the suspension of various government benefits during the pandemic. In Turkey, President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan has won a 3rd term in office following a historic runoff election this past weekend. Our Song Yujin has mourned his victory and its broader implications.
Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan has secured another 5 years in office. With more than 99% of ballots counted, Turkey's election commission declared Erdoğan as the winner of Sunday's runoff vote. With more than 52% of the vote, he defeated his rival, opposition leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, who got 47%. This came 2 weeks after Erdoğan fell just short of the 50% of the vote needed for an outright win in the election's first round. Following the results, Kılıçdaroğlu described the election as, quote, the most unfair in recent years, but did not dispute Erdoğan's victory. The Turkish leader now enters his 3rd straight term as president. Erdoğan's victory comes at a pivotal time, both at home and abroad. Turkey is battling with skyrocketing inflation while trying to recover from the devastating earthquake in February that took the lives of more than 50,000 people. Outside, there is the war in Ukraine, as well as Sweden's efforts to join NATO. Erdoğan has been holding off approving Sweden's entry into the bloc, which needs unanimous approval from member states, and he has accused Sweden of being soft on groups that Turkey considers to be terrorists. Other NATO members have been pushing for Sweden's membership as part of their efforts to isolate Russia following its invasion of Ukraine. Turkey has been going the opposite of its NATO allies, maintaining ties with Moscow and continuing trade with Russia. This has prompted the United States to stop the sales of its F-16 fighter jets to Ankara. Some experts say Erdoğan could change his mind and approve Sweden's NATO bid so that he can purchase F-16s from the U.S. It's unclear whether Turkey could go for big changes in its foreign policy, but the international community is keeping a close eye on its moves. 송유진, Arirang News.
And in related news, President Yoon has joined his global counterparts in congratulating Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan on his re-election. Taking to Twitter back on Monday, President spoke of looking forward to working with his Turkish counterpart Erdoğan to further promote South Korea and Turkey's strategic partnership and to deepen the brotherhood of their people. Korea and Turkey's ties go back much further than the 66 years of their official diplomatic relations, and Turkish soldiers fought alongside South Koreans during the Korean War, setting the stage for a brotherhood forged in blood. Turkish President Erdoğan was first elected to the top office in 2014 and was previously Turkey's Prime Minister. In Ukraine, for the first time in months, capital Kyiv was targeted with missile and drone assaults during broad daylight this past Monday as Russia launches a massive airstrike. Our Isingje has the latest.
Russia has been ramping up assaults on the Ukrainian capital Kyiv this month. On Sunday, Kyiv faced heavy missile and drone attacks, and again on Monday, the capital came under another wave of attacks from Russia, this time during daytime hours. According to the Ukrainian military, Russia fired dozens of cruise missiles from strategic bombers stationed in the Caspian Sea. While most of the missiles were shot down, the attacks killed 4 and injured 25 others in the city in the 2 days of the assault. The latest attack on the capital was all the more concerning as it marked the first daytime attack in the area in months while streets were full of people going to work and school. The daytime assault followed a massive Russian air attack using drones the previous day. Ukraine says it shot down 58 out of the 59 drones used to attack the capital on Sunday. And with Moscow using Iranian-made drones, Ukraine's parliament voted in favor of a proposal to impose additional sanctions against Iran to stop the transit of Iranian products through Ukrainian territory. Ukraine says Iran has supplied Russia with so-called kamikaze drones, which have been used to target Ukrainian infrastructure, leading to civilian deaths. While Russia has so far launched 16 assaults on Kyiv this month, the Kyiv Regional Military Administration says Moscow seems to be changing its tactics, demonstrating its will to attack the civilian population. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in the field of regenerative medicine, 3D bioprinting is promising to take treatment to a new level. That being said, a team of researchers here have developed a bio-ink that is more biocompatible with tissues and even biodegradable. Our Yoon explains.
The bio industry has been hard at work trying to develop 3D printing technology capable of creating artificial tissue for the human body. The challenge has been developing a bio-ink that is safe for humans. The risk of toxicity is high when using chemicals and ultraviolet rays, which means there would need to be external culturing of cells that then need to be transplanted into the body, furthering the risks of side effects. Developing this bio-ink technology has remained in its research stages and so far has not been successful in reaching the clinical testing stage. But now a team of Korean researchers has developed bio-ink that can hold a stable structure through temperature control. At body temperature, its form hardens to a gel-like structure. This new bio-ink printed part helps regenerate tissue cells, then biodegrades in the body after a certain period of time. Not only is it easy to print in various shapes, but its greatest advantage is that it doesn't need ultraviolet rays to hold its structure. The research team tested this technology on a mouse with a damaged skull. In 8 weeks, the bio-ink printed support structure helped the bones regenerate to normal tissue levels, and the structure itself had started its slow biodegradation.
We could see the bio-ink slowly biodegrade by the 42nd day, and comparing the 4th and 8th weeks, we could see the bones regenerate.
Existing bio-ink required an additional injection of stem cells, which increased the risk of side effects on the immune system. But this newly developed bio-ink stimulates the regeneration of tissues and not cells, so it can be used to treat any orthopedic patient.
The bio-ink has the ability to attract stem cells within the body to regenerate desired tissue growth without an injection of external stem cells.
The research team says the bio-ink is being prepared for clinical trials at a local bioventure company and expects this technology to be commercialized as early as 3 years from now. They also plan further research into using the bio-ink not only for bone tissue regeneration, but also for it to be used for skin and organ tissue regeneration. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. Russia on Monday issued an arrest warrant for United States Senator Lindsey Graham over comments related to the war in Ukraine. The warrant follows Ukraine's release of an edited video of a meeting between the Republican politician and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Friday. In the shortened clip, Graham says, quote, "The Russians are dying," and later in the conversation says that the US military assistance to Ukraine was the best money we've ever spent. But the shortened video puts the two separate remarks together. Graham responded to the arrest warrant, saying he would wear it as a badge of honor. Zelensky's office on Sunday uploaded the full, unedited clip. Turning our attention now to Kosovo, where at least 25 NATO troops have been injured in clashes with Serb protesters while defending town halls in northern Kosovo. NATO has condemned the attacks on its peacekeepers as totally unacceptable. The clashes broke out on Monday after the installation of ethnic Albanian mayors. They were elected in an April vote that was boycotted by Kosovo Serbs, who make up the majority in the northern regions. Kosovo declared its independence from Serbia in 2008. Its sovereign status has been recognized by 99 United Nations member states. And finally, a kitten trapped in a rain pipe for 3 days has been found alive in Lebanon's capital, Beirut. Rescuers from the animal charity group Animals Lebanon were able to save the kitten on Friday local time, using special small cameras to locate the furry feline. According to the vice president of the group, the kitten got trapped shortly after being born. It was reportedly part of a litter and abandoned by its owner. The rescued kitten has fast become popular, drawing attention from volunteer rescuers, the public, and even some politicians. It's been suggested that it be named Beirut. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. It's quite muggy today, very warm and humid, with the humidity level reaching more than 90% in the capital. And highs are approaching near 30 degrees Celsius this afternoon, with a chance of passing rain later in the day. While Jeju Island will see rain picking up as the day goes on, with up to 80 millimeters of showers expected into tomorrow morning, while passing rain is in the forecast in central regions and Jeollado provinces until this afternoon. It could rain along with thunder and lightning, so have an umbrella handy. The capital region is forecast to receive showers around 5 p.m. Now, regions near the coast are having temperatures on the cooler side in the low 20s. Inland areas are seeing highs in the upper 20s this afternoon, and the air quality will be normal to good nationwide all day today. Now, Jeju is forecast to see rain through the end of the week, while the mainland stays mostly sunny with early summer temperatures. Well, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
And those are the headlines at this hour. We have our panel session coming up right after this break, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.